like my wife would say, I have too many stories, and that I need to write my book or books about my life. When my mother met my father many years ago, when he was like the commissioner of sports in Lagos State. I'm from the popular Folawiyo family, and my father was, like you would always say when he was alive, that is the most learned person in the family. Before he came back to Nigeria in 1980, he was an associate professor in the University of Tennessee in America. He won several awards, so he came back to Nigeria with his shoulders high. And before he left Nigeria, he had other children for different women. One of the things my father would say when he was alive, anytime we don't do well, is to say that even he got an award as the best player in America by Playboy magazine at some point. And that if he did all of that, and you have not done 1/10 of what I did, how come you have not succeeded as much as I've succeeded? So he was a celebrated polygamist. I grew up to see my uncles brag about the number of wives they have. It was a competition. Women were seen as objects and not subjects, because they feel they've got it all, they've got money, they got the charisma, so they can achieve anything. My mother met this man, and she carried my pregnancy. I was barely 6 months when they had an issue, and she was chased out of the house. So my mom gave birth to me. My father was traveling all around the country. Long story cut short, for about 15 years, I didn't know what he looked like. I saw him on TV, I saw him on pages of newspaper, but I never get to see him one-on-one. So when I got to JSS2, I decided I needed to locate my father. I was tired of telling people he was out of the country. I was tired of telling people he was dead. At some point, when people asked for my name because of the surname, I would say my name is Biodun Adebi. My mom was Ni Adebi. So at some point I got tired in JSS2. My friend, we were sitting on the same desk. His name is Kelechi Kama. Well, Kelechi Kama, if you are watching this, please, I need to get in touch. You need to get in touch with me because we lost touch. So I sat him down a Friday and I told him that I heard, the last time I heard, or I could gather, my father is in the same university as your dad, University of Lagos. I was in St. Finbar's College at that time. And of course, if you know University of Lagos and St. Finbar's College, they're just few kilometers, apart from each other. So he looked at me and laughed at me. And then he asked me, what's the name of your father? I said, my father is one of the most popular person in the school. Just go look for Dr. A.F.A. Folawiyo. He came back the following Monday and he said, I found him. Father, I went to his office, saw his door, and then we planned a project for the next Friday. So we went there. He walked past me. I knew he walked past me because I saw a man wearing a coffee brown French suit. And he was one of the best dressers in University of Lagos at that time. We got to his office, waited for him. He came in, saw me, people, he had a lot of people waiting for him. He looked at the man seated. He looked at me and said, this is my son. This should be my son. Abiodun? I said, sir. And he looked at all of them. Say, in life, always be patient, because someday you would be, your expectations and your efforts will come to limelight. This boy, his mother, ran away with him for many years. And they all looked at me and felt for me. Now he has come to look for his father. I always say, even when you have 100 wives, and you give birth to, and they give birth to you, and they go to their different locations. Someday, the children will look for their father. So, then he said, okay, what do we do? I need to change your school to a private school. St. Finbar at that time was a public school. You know, on and on and on and on. I went back home, told my mom, I found my father, and she was so mad at me. That why are you in a hurry to look for a man that is not responsible? But I never told her what my father said. Because the goal I had was to ensure that before they die, I will be the person that will mend that relationship. We look so much alike. So my mom would see me and burst into tears. So one day she looked at me and said, I love you so much as a son, but I wish you don't end up being like your father. So if my wife looks at me today and says, Abiodun, looking at your background, when we're going to get married, she asked me, are you sure you will not end up being like your father? And I said, it's the reason why I can never be like my father. Because I promised my mom before she died that I would never be like my father. Long story cut short, I did WAEC, I did JAM, got admission into University of Lagos. And for one reason or the other, that particular year, there was delay in JAM and all of that. Because my father was a professor in the university, so at that time, we were given an opportunity as staff to, put the names of their children that are awaiting results. I was on the list. I gained admission into University of Lagos, 1998, and I started lectures. Paid for everything. I was feeling like a big boy, UNILAG boy. All right. Then WAEC released, was JAM, WAEC and JAM. WAEC released the results, and I made only Yoruba. I made 6s. Only in Yoruba. So I went to my mom. I said, it has happened. We need to go and face this man. And he had always blamed my mom. That my mom does not understand anything about education, that he's not sure about my foundation educationally. It was not there. But he was blaming her for the foundation she gave me. I didn't remember to tell you that she raised 6 children like that. All right. So, went to him, and I walked in into his office with my mom, and I told my dad, they gave me P7 in maths, and it walked me out of his office. And one of his friends in his office had to plead on my behalf and told his friend to go out there to tell me that nobody that I got, that I should come back to tell. So we went through all of that and said, okay, no problem, I'll see what I can do. The usual thing as at that time is for you to get squeezed into the system. You sit for JAM or WAEC again, manipulate your way through and all of that. And my father looked at me and said, I will never do that. Went back home to my mother's house. Usually I go to see him every weekend. And I got there, my stepmother called me and said, young man, you are going back to JSS3. I said, why? He said, because your father sat down with then the Minister of Education, and they decided, put all my life on the table, and they said this guy must go back to his foundation has been so porous. He needs to go back to JSS3. So my father gave me a list to tick that, look, buy this, and I said, Daddy, for who? Say, for you. You are going back to secondary school. What class? He said JSS3. And that was it. So then World War X was declared at home. My mom said, now this man is all out to ruin this guy. She looked at me and said, I told you never to go back to look for this man. It would destroy you. But I decided that, look, I need to go back. It was then I decided to define what shame means. My younger ones would then become, ahead of me and all of that. So I went back. And I wanted him to know that I'm not a failure. Because he told me to my face that, look, this is the last chance I'm giving you. It's either you perform or I disown you. So I went back to secondary school. But the then principal said, look, I cannot accommodate this guy in JSS3. This guy is going to be a problem to the school. Year 1 to JSS3. Say, sir, it will be my own problem. The best I would ask for, sir, is SS2. And he agreed. And then he got into his car and said, look, this is the best I can do for you. Open day, no. The only thing I got close to open day was one of his girlfriends had his child too in the school. His girlfriend would come, try to encourage me. And of course, my mom was doing the best she could do. So I started reading. I told myself that, look, I'm going to ensure that I make the best out of my life. And I'm going to ensure that my children will not go through what I went through. And even if they fail in school, I'll teach them that failure is not the end of life. So I was reading so hard to the point that the people I met in school thought I was frustrated. So I don't talk too much. I would always read. So I put in for GCE and I made 5 credits, maths and English inclusive. So confidently I took the result to my dad. I said, Dad, now I'm qualified to get into the university. He looked at me and then he told me that we'll be going out together. Went to the staff club in UNILAG and he told his friends. I didn't know what they were saying. They told me to sit away. Then they called me and they said, young man, you are not qualified to get you into the university because you don't have commerce. And that there's a new rule and instruction from the Ministry of Education that if you want to be in the commercial class, if you're coming from the commercial class and want to study accountancy, you must have commerce. And right there, they dampened my spirit again. So I needed to go back to read harder. And then I came back, I did WAEC, I did NECO, and at the end of the day, I had several A's, distinction. Similar thing happened to my stepbrother, the older ones. And if I see them today, I won't be proud to call them my brothers. Because the same thing my father did to me, did to them, and it killed their morale. Till date, they've not found themselves back. My other sister too fell into the same thing. She became pregnant in secondary school, and my father neglected her, forgot about her, and exactly 2 years after my father died, she died of depression. So, the reason why my own stories seemed to be different was because I had elder ones, and my mother was extremely supportive to encourage me never to give up. Recently, I got a news. My son is 9 years old right now, very good in coding, and some other very, very smart guy. So my wife noticed that his results wasn't too good in some areas, and she was really worried and bothered. Then I put her aside and said, don't be like my father. So I sat with my son on the dining table, and I said, Emmanuel, you know Daddy loves you so much, and you know I believe in you. And you know I always tell you one thing, that anytime I set my eyes on you, I'm always very happy. Well, I'm not happy about your result. I'm sure you are also not happy about it. Promise me you do better next time. And I promise you I'm going to take you out and you eat as much pizza and ice cream as you want. Deal? He said, Daddy, deal? I said, deal. And I saw my son put extra effort into ensuring that it comes out better. They had to call me from school and said, what Emmanuel did this time, we cannot explain. So my encouragement to parents out there, as much as you want the best for your children, ensure that you motivate them along the way so that they would build in a level of confidence that would give them the reason to always face life challenges afterwards. Thank you so much for that.